I figured buying a house way out in the woods meant total freedom. No neighbors snooping, no crazy HOA rules, just me, my land, and the calm of the wild. Then the HOA showed up. At first, they said I owed them dues, even though my property wasn't even part of their area. I pushed back, and that's when they escalated. One afternoon, I drove up to my private driveway and found it completely blocked off. There was this huge iron gate, locked up tight, with a smug little HOA sign slapped on it. They had literally cut off my access to my own house. But they messed with the wrong guy. If it's a fight they want, they just started one with the worst person for it. I'd always wanted a place far from the chaos. No traffic, no people, and especially no HOA trying to control every inch of my property. So when I found this place deep in the woods, way off the grid, I knew it was it. A spot where I could live exactly how I wanted. I poured months into fixing it up. The place was small, just a solid log cabin with a wide porch, tucked beneath towering pines. A little creek flowed through the backyard, and the only nighttime sounds were whine through the trees and the occasional owl. It felt like real freedom. The only way to reach it was a dirt road I'd carved out myself. It was rough, bumpy, and most importantly mine. No one else could use it, and I liked it that way. For the first time in forever, I felt like I could finally exhale. Until one morning changed all that. I stepped outside with my coffee, taking in that cool morning air, and spotted something by the road entrance. A white sign stuck in the ground. From a distance, it looked official, bold letters, clean lines, like something placed there with authority. I squinted and set my mug down on the porch rail. I hadn't approved any kind of construction, and this was my land. No one had the right to put anything there without asking. As I got closer, the words became clear. Property of HOA, members only past this point. I actually laughed. Huh? More like HOA. There was no HOA out here. I made damn sure of that before I bought the place. My cabin was well outside the closest community line. That sign had nothing to do with me. Still, it ticked me off. Not just the message, but the nerve. Someone had walked onto my land, without permission, and tried to claim it. I ripped the sign out of the ground and tossed it in the back of my truck. Probably just a mix-up. Maybe someone from the HOA put it in the wrong spot. No big deal. Or so I thought. I didn't realize it was just the opening shot. A few days later, I headed into town to grab some supplies. Living off-grid meant making the most of each trip. Gas for the generator, food for the week, maybe a burger at the diner if I had time. Just another routine errand. But when I got back, what I saw hit me like ice water. My driveway, gone. In its place stood a full-on iron gate. Black steel bars stretched across the entrance, clamped shut with a heavy-duty padlock. No way in. I slammed on the brakes, my truck fishtailing across the dirt. My gut dropped as I jumped out and rushed up to it, gripping the frozen metal in disbelief. This thing was solid, unmoving, and stuck right in the middle of it was a fresh sign. Private community access, HOA members only. I stared at it, trying to wrap my head around what I was seeing. I wasn't part of their neighborhood. This wasn't their street. This was my property. And somehow, they'd managed to shut me out of my own place. I didn't hesitate. The second I saw that gate blocking me from my own land, I threw the truck in reverse and tore off toward town. My grip on the steering wheel was so tight, my hands ached. I didn't care how many offices I had to go through. I was getting answers. Oak Ridge HOA had this slick little office right downtown, squeezed between a bank and a yoga spot. Out front, one of those fake-friendly signs smiled at me. Oak Ridge HOA, building a better community together. I yanked the glass door open so hard it rattled. Inside smelled like knockoff lemon cleaner and perfume that cost too much. Family photos and manicured lawns lined the walls. Behind a small desk sat an older lady with gray hair who looked up, startled. "Can I help you, sir?" she asked, sugar in her tone. "Yeah," I shot back, barely holding it together. "I need to talk to whoever's running this place." She paused, weighing whether I was worth the hassle. But before she could answer, a sharp voice cut in from behind. "I'll handle this, Diane." A woman stepped forward, and the second I saw her, I knew she was bad news. Linda Carter, HOA president, smug, cold, and reeking of high-end perfume and pure spite. She looked to be in her late 50s, wearing a spotless gray pantsuit, holding a clipboard tight to her side like it was a shield. Her blonde hair was done up in one of those rigid, helmet-style cuts that stayed frozen even when she moved. She gave me one of those tight, artificial smiles, pure muscle memory. "You must be Mr. Walker," she said, giving me a once-over like I was something she'd scrape off her shoe. I furrowed my brow. I hadn't told her my name. "I know exactly who you are," she went on, shifting the clipboard in her arm. "We've been meaning to have a little conversation." My jaw tightened. "Great. Then let's talk. Why the hell is there a gate blocking my driveway?" Linda smiled like I'd just asked for a napkin at brunch. "Oh, that? Just a small change," she said, calm as can be. "Thing is, your property now falls under Oak Ridge HOA. I blinked. A laugh burst out of me, short, dry, bitter. "No, it doesn't," I shot back. "I live off-grid, outside the HOA line. I made damn sure before I bought it." She gave a little condescending TSK and opened her clipboard. "Well, things evolve, Mr. Walker," she sang. "Over the past few months, the HOA's expanded. We just acquired the land surrounding your road, which officially brings it into our community." I felt my stomach drop. This wasn't some filing mix-up. This was intentional. "You don't know my road," I said quietly, voice low with warning. She lifted a carefully shaped brow. "Technically, we own the land your road runs through. And now that it's inside the HOA, well, it's only right you chip in, don't you think?" I clenched my jaw. "I don't owe you anything." Linda gave a long-suffering sigh, like I was missing something obvious. "Well," she said, tilting her head slightly, "if you want access to our road, you'll need to join Oak Ridge HOA." She said it all honeyed up like she was doing me a solid. I crossed my arms. "And if I say no?" Linda's grin got bigger. "Well then, I guess you'll have to find yourself another route home." I could have punched a hole through the wall. This had nothing to do with gates or community standards. They were boxing me in, trying to shove me into the HOA, force me to play along, pay their dues. I exhaled slowly, keeping a lid on the fury bubbling up. "My deed is clear," I said, firm as iron. "That land belongs to me. You can't just stake a claim like that." Linda just gave a casual shrug, not the least bit fazed. "Well, feel free to bring it up with the county," she said breezily. "But good luck with that. It could drag on for months, maybe even years." She flashed a knowing grin, fully aware of the game she was playing. Meanwhile, the road stays closed, for safety reasons, of course. My hands balled in a fist so tight my nails bit into my skin. She was keeping me off my own damn property, and there wasn't a thing I could do about it. Linda adjusted her clipboard, throwing one last smug glance my way. "I'm thinking of bringing Mr. Walker into this," she added, voice dripping with fake concern. "Wouldn't want things to get messy." Then she spun around and walked off, leaving me there, fists clenched, pulse racing. I had two options, back down or push back, and there was no way in hell I was letting Linda Carter win. No chance I'd let some smug HOA queenpin shut me out of what's mine. That same afternoon, after our little run-in, I drove straight back to my land, pulled my truck right up to the gate, and grabbed the bolt cutters from the toolbox. If they thought I'd just take this line down, they were dead wrong. The lock was heavy, but not unbreakable. I got the cutters in a place, jaw clenched, ready to go. Step away from the gate. A voice called from behind me. I went still, slowly turning. Two guys in black security uniforms were standing a few yards off. HOA goons. One was short and broad, buzz-cut, arms crossed like he was ready for a standoff. The other, taller and leaner, casually rested a hand on the baton clipped to his belt. "What do you think you're doing?" I shot back. The stocky one, probably the muscle, nodded toward the gate. "That's HOA property." I let out a laugh. "You can't be serious. This is my driveway. My home's just up that hill." The tall guy gave a lazy smirk. "Not what the records say, sir. As of last month, this road's under Oak Ridge HOA control. And you're trespassing." My grip on the bolt cutters tightened. "You're seriously telling me I'm trespassing on my own damn land?" The muscle stepped in closer. "That's the policy. If you're not part of the HOA, you've got no right to be here." I stared them down, heat rising in my chest. They weren't bluffing. "Touch that gate," the taller guy warned, "and we're calling the cops." I wanted to tell them to screw off, but I wasn't dumb. Linda had buried this in legal red tape. If I so much as touched that lock, I'd be the one in cuffs. So I did the hardest thing I've ever done. I stepped back. The stocky guy smirked and gave me a smug nod. Good call. I didn't respond. Just tossed the bolt cutters in my truck, got in, and tore out of there. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Next morning, I headed straight to the county office, locked and loaded for a fight. Had all my documents ready, title, purchase proof, even satellite shots showing my road wasn't part of the HOA. I figured once they saw it, it'd get sorted out. The lady at the counter barely glanced at the stack. You'll need to file an official complaint, she said, sliding a thick pile of forms at me. It'll go through our review board. How long is that going to take? I asked. She pushed up her glasses. Could be 6 to 8 months before we can even get a hearing on the schedule. My jaw tightened. I don't have 6 months. They've cut off my only way in. I'm sorry, sir, she said with a bland smile. That's the procedure. I want to chuck the paperwork right back at her. This wasn't just red tape. It was deliberate. Linda Carter had friends in high places. She knew exactly how long this would drag out, and figured by then, I'd be worn down enough to cave and join her precious HOA. She figured wrong. I wasn't backing down. A few days passed, and things escalated. It started with my truck tires. I had run into town for some supplies, parked outside the usual grocery store, and came back to find every single tire slashed. For deep, clean cuts. Too precise to be random. This wasn't vandalism, it was a warning. I stood there, fists balled up, staring at the wreckage. It had to be those HOA rent-a-cops. I shelled out for a tow, got new tires, and drove home pissed off. That night, sleep barely came. Every time I shut my eyes, Linda Carter's smug face flashed in my head. But the next morning managed to top that. I hit the light switch. Nothing. Tried the coffee maker. No response. Even the fridge was silent. Power was gone. I stormed outside to check my generator. Tank was full. No problems. I called the electric company. After 30 minutes of elevator music, a rep finally picked up, sounding half asleep. Yeah, looks like your service got temporarily suspended, she said. My brow furrowed. Suspended? For what? Says here Oak Ridge HOA requested a service adjustment in that area. You're listed as a non-member. So, not on the active service list. I nearly crushed the phone in my grip. Let me get this straight, I said, voice ice cold. The HOA told you to cut my power? That's what it looks like. You can challenge it, but that usually takes a couple weeks. I hung up. I didn't need more runaround. It was obvious now. The gate was just the opening shot. Linda Carter and her HOA cronies were turning up the pressure. First, they blocked off my road. Then they messed with my truck. Now, they were literally trying to shut me down on my own property. I wasn't clueless. I knew the game. They wanted me aggravated, pushed to the brink, hoping I'd crawl into their office and beg to be part of the HOA. Hand them the reins. But I had something on my side. They figured I was just some hard-headed homeowner, a guy who'd eventually break. They had no clue what kind of fight they'd picked. That night, I chose to hike the old trail up to the house. Steep, thick with brush, but familiar. I'd used it before when I didn't want to be seen. Halfway up, I stopped cold. Something fell off. My skin prickled. I could sense eyes on me. Then I saw it. A tiny black gadget strapped high to a tree. A camera. I froze, my gut tightening. Then I spotted another. And another. Cameras. Tucked away along the trail. Watching me. Recording everything. I eased back a step, heart hammering. This wasn't about keeping me off their land anymore. They were tracking me. Like I was some kind of threat. Like they were just waiting for me to slip up. I turned around, headed to my truck. Kept my face blank. Because right then, I saw the path ahead. I could back down. Or I could push back. And if Linda Carter thought I was just going to roll over and take it, she had no clue what she'd started. I wasn't about to go full-on Rambo and try to wreck the HOA by force. Linda and her crew of rule-loving clipboard fanatics had some serious pull. If I went straight at them, I'd drown in paperwork before I got a word in. But from watching them, I'd learned one thing. They weren't bulletproof. They wanted to play dirty? Fine by me. I was ready to outplay them at their own game. First move, bring in a land surveyor. I needed proof. Hard, legal, can't argue with it kind of proof that their land claim was bogus. Didn't take long to find someone. Word gets around in small towns. And the second I said Oak Ridge HOA, the guy just sighed and muttered, "Yeah, those folks have pulled stunts like this before." That was all I needed. A few days later, the report was in my hands. And it was worse than I'd imagined. The surveyor confirmed it. The land by my driveway, never officially handed over to the HOA. Sure, they filed some paperwork, but it was missing key pieces. The county never signed off, which meant the HOA had zero authority to block my access. I looked at the report, and this slow, steady grin crept across my face. Now I just needed one last play to bring the whole thing down. I spent the next few days rigging up my own cameras. If they wanted to keep tabs on me, I'd return the favor. I set up discreet, high-res cameras in the trees by my gate, angled so they'd stay hidden unless you were seriously hunting for them. Then I waited. Didn't take long. One night, close to 11 p.m., I got a ping. My cameras caught motion. I pulled up the feed, and there they were. Two members of the HOA board, dressed in black, creeping around my property. They were on my property, not supposed to be there. Moving slow, nervous glances thrown over their shoulders, like they knew they were crossing a line. One of them reached into his pocket, pulled out this tiny black gadget. I squinted at the screen. Signal jammer. Those jerks were trying to knock out my cameras. Joke's on them. I had backups in place. Now I had them recorded, caught in the act. But that wasn't enough for me. I needed something extra. Something Linda Carter would never forget. So I rigged their fancy gate with a little surprise. I tweaked the lock and slipped in a small ink pack. Yeah, the same kind bank stash and cash bags to tag robbers. That kind. Next time Linda and her gang came by to check their gate, she got hit with a splash of bright, permanent blue ink. I angled my cameras just right so I wouldn't miss a second. Then I kicked back and waited. Didn't take long. 2 days later, mid-morning, I was grabbing coffee in town when my phone buzzed, motion alert at the gate. I opened the live feed and almost spit out my coffee. There she was, Linda Carter, all proud with her clipboard, acting like she owned the place. She reached for the lock. I leaned in, holding my breath. Boom! Thick blue ink exploded right in her face. She stumbled back, screaming, waving her arms. The rest of the board members behind her froze in shock. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my phone. She was drenched. That spotless pantsuit, now splattered in blue. Her perfect blonde hair streaked, like neon lightning. She looked like some pissed-off, soaking smuff. Screaming gibberish, totally losing it. The others didn't even want to get close to her. I wiped my eyes, still laughing. And to really seal the deal, I sent the footage to the local news. Let's just say Linda Carter's moment of glory was about to hit the spotlight. The second I saw Linda Carter's meltdown covered in ink on my screen, I knew what had to happen. This wasn't just a dumb neighbor feud anymore. They'd stolen my land, wrecked my stuff, and harassed me nonstop. Time to shut it down. I spent hours combing through every second of footage from my cameras. Every single time they trespassed. Every crooked HOA. Creeps lurking around my yard. Security guys throwing around threats. And of course, Linda Carter blowing up in blue at the gate. That was legendary. I made sure it made the rounds. Sent it to the local news first. Gave them everything. Midnight prowlers. The damage they caused. The clip where Linda smirked and told me I was stuck joining the HOA. But I didn't let it end there. I emailed it to any homeowner I knew had griped about Oak Ridge HOA. Dropped it in local forums and social media feeds. By the end, half the town had seen it. And people were furious. The next day, I woke up to mayhem. Linda Carter's face was all over Facebook groups and news headlines. One headline read, Oak Ridge HOA president busted for trespassing, gets a taste of her own medicine. Another said, HOA boss goes viral after wrecking resident's yard and getting instant payback. The video of her covered in blue ink had blown up online. The cherry on top? She had court the very next day. I wasn't finished. With the evidence I had, I called up a lawyer. Not just for me. This was for every homeowner that HOA had strong-armed. And there were a lot. Turns out I wasn't the only one they'd gone after. For years, Linda and her crew had pulled this scam over and over. Forcing buy-ins, bogus land claims, fake fines. I laid it all out for the lawyer. He shook his head and said, we're going to crush them. And we did. I walked into court the next day. The HOA was being taken to trial for fraud, harassment, and illegal land grabbing. I felt solid. Then I spotted Linda Carter. She was at the defendant's table, still stained with streaks of blue. She tried to scrub it off, but the dye had left blotches on her neck and in her hair. She looked wrecked. I took my seat. The judge, an older guy with zero patience, already looked fed up. "I've reviewed the footage you submitted," he said, tapping the folder. "And frankly, I'm stunned." Linda squirmed. The judge looked right at her. "Mrs. Carter, your group has been involved in shady practices, fake land claims, and trespassing." She started to speak, but the judge lifted his hand. "Also," he added, "this courtroom isn't a stage for circus acts." A ripple of laughter moved through the crowd. Linda's face turned a deep shade of red. The judge continued. The HOA's attempt to seize the land hadn't been lawful. They'd skipped filing the proper documents, meaning the gate had to be removed, and the HOA got slammed with thousands in fines for fraud and intimidation. But the highlight? Linda Carter was officially ousted as HOA president. A few days later, I stood at the edge of my driveway, watching their hired crew tear down the beloved gate. The same security guys who once threatened me? Now they had to stand off to the side, saying nothing while I grinned and sipped my coffee. Linda Carter? Out. She got voted out by the very people she once bossed around. I heard from one of the neighbors that she had to pack up and leave town altogether. She turned into such a local disgrace. Couldn't have happened to a more deserving person. And when I saw that final chunk of the gate hit the ground, I smiled. Because the land was mine again, and no HOA was ever going to lay a finger on it. A few weeks went by after I watched that damn gate come down. Life settled back into something like normal, or at least the kind of normal that follows bringing down a crooked HOA and publicly humiliating its leader. For the first time in ages, I felt calm. No more surveillance. No more veiled threats. No more Linda Carter and her crew of clipboard warriors trying to micromanage my own property. I had my place back, but the HOA still wasn't finished with me. One morning, while I was enjoying coffee on the porch, a white envelope landed in my mailbox. No sender info, just my name neatly typed. I had a bad feeling right away. I tore it open to find a thick, official-style letter. The first few lines made me nearly spit out my coffee. "Dear Mr. Walker, we sincerely regret any misunderstandings that may have occurred in recent weeks. We deeply value all members of our community, and we wish to extend a formal invitation to welcome you as a full member of the Oak Ridge HOA, completely free of charge." I stared at the paper, stunned. They were trying to hand me a free membership. The very same HOA that stole my road, messed with my truck, and killed my electricity was now pretending this whole mess was just a little mix-up. I kept reading. "Given how things have turned out, we're kindly requesting you to reconsider pursuing any more legal steps. We truly believe the best path forward is to live peacefully together as neighbors." I just about fell out of my chair laughing. This wasn't just a plea to back off the lawsuit. They were trying to butter me up. They had lost, and now they were scrambling. I glanced at the shredder tucked into the corner of my office. For a moment, I thought about feeding the letter to it. But nah, this needed a better send-off. I grabbed a lighter from the kitchen drawer, walked out back, and held the letter over the fire pit. One flick and the flame licked up the edge, curling it into blackened ash. The paper withered away, taking with it every trace of that sorry excuse for an apology. When it was gone, so was any ounce of tolerance I'd ever had for the Oak Ridge HOA. They had tried every trick to break me. They cut off access to my road. They tossed around threats. They tried to force me out of my own place. And now they thought I could be bought off with some lay membership. I grabbed my whiskey glass, gave a little toast to the woods surrounding me, and cracked a smile. "Nice try, Linda." Then I took a sip, leaned back, and enjoyed the quiet. Because after all of it, I'd come out on top. The sun was beginning to dip low, casting streaks of gold through the trees. The woods were still calm, just the way they should be. No more HOA goons creeping around. No more rent-a-cops pretending to have any say on my land. I kicked back in my deck chair, whiskey in hand, and looked down the road, where that damn gate once stood, keeping me from my own driveway. Something better stood there now. A fresh wooden sign, letters carved deep into the smooth oak, plain as day. "Private property. HOA members will be prosecuted." No cutesy slogans. No phony HOA nonsense. Just a straight-up warning. I took another long sip, letting it all sink in. They tried to strong-arm me, tried to shove me aside. But Linda Carter? She was out. The HOA? Toast. And my land? It was finally mine again. I grinned, settled deeper into my chair as the evening air cooled around me. Let's just say they never came sniffing around again.